What if the Coke in your refrigerator is still in your lunchbox even after it is deemed too hazardous to sell in Europe? The European Food Safety Authority released broad warnings about American soft drinks at the beginning of 2025, based on new laboratory testing that revealed substances that were prohibited, harmful colors, and sugar levels that were connected to neurological harm and liver disease. Some brands were so unsuccessful that they were not even permitted to pass customs. And yet, without any prior notice, they continue to be openly displayed in American grocery shops, schools, and gas stations. Why can American businesses offer sodas that Europe banned due to safety concerns? Why are working Americans, retirees, and low-income families still given the harmful, inexpensive versions while cleaner formulae are secretly kept for international markets? What are they aware of that you are not aware of? The truth becomes personal in this edition of the Downturn Report, and today, we're revealing the true cause of these 6 American soda companies' ban in Europe. You continue to consume them, though. But before we get right in, if you're worried about your health, click the subscribe button and turn on notifications because this is where we share the facts that no one talks about. And if you're with me, please let me know. In the comment field, put 1 if you're currently viewing and this video speaks to you. Type 0 otherwise, you are unaware of the significance of your voice. First up, Mountain Dew. At the very least, you would expect that anything offered at every gas station cooler in the nation would be safe to consume. Like that noisy neighbor who never stops talking, Mountain Dew somehow became a member of the family. From Alabama to Idaho, it can be found in tool sheds, break rooms, lunchboxes, and fishing boats. It sells a bottle of energy and defiance and is marketed as the beverage of skateboarders and daredevils. Here's the jaw-dropper, though. Most of Europe wouldn't even carry this same beverage that Americans eat with their sandwiches and chips. Furthermore, their governments believe it is unfit for human consumption, not because they dislike the flavor. Let's begin by discussing the reasons behind Mountain Dew's expulsion from the continent. Vegetable oil that has been brominated. It sounds like something you could use for cooking. Rethink your thought. It's not from your grandmother's pantry. The fireproofing aisle is where it came from. Flame retardants also contain BVO, as it is known. Additionally, it was present in every bottle of Dew sold in the United States until the end of 2024 in order to prevent taste separation. The issue? Researchers in Europe and then in the United States all connected it to neurological damage, thyroid disorders, and hormonal abnormalities. According to a peer-reviewed toxicological study, it accumulates in body fat and causes long-term hormone disruption, particularly in children. Why, therefore, did Pepsi take so long to make the commitment to take it out in late 2024? And why was the old bottle still being marketed without a single recall? Even worse, nobody can tell you if the one in your refrigerator currently was there before or after the purported cure. Furthermore, that neon hue isn't found in nature. Yellow 5 is a synthetic pigment used in Mountain Dew that has been recognized in Europe for potentially triggering allergic responses and hyperactivity in children. Any product that has more than a specific amount is subject to warning labeling in the United Kingdom. It is concealed in the fine print, buried away below natural flavors here in the United States. No blinking light and no warning. Glug, glug, and have fun. Then there's the punch from caffeine and sugar. More than 70 grams of sugar, more than 19 teaspoons, and almost as much caffeine as a strong cup of coffee are included in a typical 20-ounce bottle. Not a soft drink at all. It's a time bomb. The European Food Safety Authority sets strict limits on what can be included in sodas, particularly those targeted at children. Like a race car without brakes, Mountain Dew blasts past those boundaries. After consuming 3 cans each day, a teenage kid in Arizona ended up in the hospital at the beginning of 2025 with liver damage. His physician referred to it as slow-motion poisoning. It's a warning shot, not hyperbole. Now, American workers, elderly, and families continue to be fed the same formula as though it were a harmless delight, while Europeans reject Mountain Dew on safety concerns. Why is that? Why are we the test site for substances that have already been discarded by other nations? However, playing lab rat for corporate profits is not necessary. Try moving to something that values your health just as much as your income if you're keeping an eye on your blood pressure, or simply fed up with being misled. Waterloo and Spindrift provide sweet fizz without sugar, dyes, or, of course, corporate deceit. Aldi, Target, and even Amazon sell them at a discount, or take a more traditional approach: ice, lemon slices, filtered water, and a small amount of honey. Without a warning label, this Southern-style refresher is made with a few mint leaves. Additionally, Perrier Essenza or San Pellegrino will satisfy your desire for a fizzy bite without causing a chemical inferno inside of you. Just avoid dollar store brands and vending machines. It is possible that they are still selling inventory from before 2024, when flame retardants were still permitted. A bottle full of prohibited substances decked out in neon is not what you deserve. 2. What do you get when you crack open a cold can of Dr. Pepper? The ads say that 23 flavors are dancing in enigmatic harmony. For people who enjoy their fizz with style, this is the soda. Like that cousin who wears a velvet blazer and cowboy boots to the family BBQ, she is bold, quirky, and a touch out of the ordinary. It's nearly a state beverage for Texans. For the rest of us, it's bubbles and nostalgia. However, this is the section that is not printed on the label. The kind marketed here would run afoul of the law in much of Europe, yet Dr. Pepper continues to fly off the shelves across America as if it were still 1965. And they read the fine print, not because they detest enjoyment. You see, Dr. Pepper does not have to be completely banned by the European Union. The rubbish inside it is simply prohibited. Among the worst offenders? Benzoate of sodium. It seems innocuous enough, but when combined with vitamin C and transforms into the carcinogen benzene. When British inspectors tested U.S. imported sodas, including older batches of Dr. Pepper in late 2024, that small scientific gimmick garnered attention once more. Lab results revealed trace levels of benzene, which were high enough to cause officials to tighten import regulations, but low enough to prevent a recall. Americans, meanwhile, continued to drink as if nothing had changed. The coloring follows next. Class 4 caramel coloring, a chemical stew prepared with ammonia that can leave behind 4-MEI, a byproduct identified by cancer experts worldwide, is what gives Dr. Pepper its iconic brown color. Europe imposes strict restrictions on the amount of 4-MEI soda that can be consumed. The United States. Let's imagine that at a frat party, the bar is set lower than a limbo stick. The majority of American sodas, including Dr. Pepper, above their permitted level unless they are reformed or filtered, according to a February 2025 update from European health officials. But here, no change without a filter. With a shrug, another case was sent off. As if that weren't enough, a lawsuit from California put Dr. Pepper in hot water in the beginning of 2025. According to a consumer advocacy group, the corporation concealed artificial sweeteners and preservatives in the fine print while posing as natural and refreshing. The matter was resolved in private, of course no confession of wrongdoing. However, the message was unambiguous. At times, nostalgia is merely a gimmick used to conceal the same old tactics. Now, consider this. Why are Americans supposed to accept the unaltered form of a Coke if it cannot be marketed abroad without undergoing a chemical makeover? Especially those who are already living on a tight budget while balancing groceries, rent, and medications. You wouldn't use duct tape to fix a hole in your roof and be safe. So why limit yourself to beverages that include substances that violate international safety regulations? The good news? There are better possibilities for you. Actual ones. With fruit juice, prebiotics, and none of the additives found in research labs, drinks like Olipop and Poppy are becoming more and more popular. In addition to upscale health stores, they are now available on some Walmart shelves, or make your own if you're feeling creative. A squeeze of lime, a little maple syrup, pomegranate or cherry juice, and soda water. It's sweet, fizzy, and doesn't require a degree in chemistry to comprehend. Make sure to quickly examine the labels when you're buying. Avoid Class 4 caramel color, sodium benzoate, and any flavor combination that seems enigmatic without any explanation. Perhaps avoid those dusty cans that are hidden in discount bins and have no expiration date. Not only are they inexpensive, but they may also be antiquated time bombs. After all, if Europe thinks Dr. Pepper needs to be cleaned up before it is sold there, perhaps it is time for us to do the same. It's okay to feel nostalgic, but you shouldn't let your health stagnate. Without the blue flash of a Pepsi can popping open, it's difficult to imagine an American summer. Pepsi has endured through baseball games, paychecks, and crammed lunchboxes, from barbecue grills to bowling alleys. Encased in decades of memorable taglines and celebrity endorsements, it is marketed as the cola of the underdog, the beverage for the daring and free-spirited. But what if the ingredient list is now the only thing that's bold about it? Because Europeans aren't just speculating, they're completely changing the recipe, while Americans continue to open cans mindlessly. Examine closely what is actually behind that beautiful brown glow in the Pepsi. 4-methylimidazole, or 4-MEI for short, is a chemical byproduct that is hidden behind that traditional caramel color. It sounds like something from a high school chemistry set, and perhaps that's where it should have remained. The European Food Safety Authority strengthened its rules on caramel coloring in 2024, especially those pertaining to processing that uses ammonia. Why? Because the International Agency for Research on Cancer has designated 4-MEI as a potential human carcinogen. This indicates that it may raise the risk of cancer. Dutch laboratory studies on U.S. imported Pepsi in early 2025 revealed 4-MEI levels that were more than 250% higher than European safety guidelines. It's a warning sign that nobody appears to be listening to, not a rounding mistake. Let's also discuss sweeteners while we're at it. Aspartame, a synthetic ingredient that has been under criticism since a 2023 study published in Lancet Oncology, raised concerns about possible linkages to liver malignancies with prolonged exposure, is still proudly present in the U.S. diet Pepsi. Some retailers have removed aspartame drinks from their shelves completely, and several European nations now mandate labels alerting consumers about the product. In contrast, it would require a magnifying glass to even see it on the label in the United States, if you even care to look. When an Illinois lawsuit accused Pepsi of marketing its beverage as being free of artificial preservatives in late 2024, things became even more problematic for the corporation. However, it turns out that they were slipping in substances like potassium benzoate and phosphoric acid, which were both mentioned in a 2025 study as being linked to bone loss and kidney harm when taken frequently. One of the most telling lines from Pepsi's internal communications that were disclosed during the litigation was, "Translation? They're relying on you to ignore the eye-catching label." Let's halt here and pose a question that most Americans don't often ask. Why do we continue to consume a recipe that is so poisonous that it is rejected abroad? Given the version that Europe won't touch, why are people working double shifts, retirees cutting coupons, and families attempting to make ends meet? This is where things become fascinating, though. In town, there are new players. Companies like United Sodas of America and Zevia are eschewing the harmful legacy in favor of plant-based sweeteners, caramel coloring, and leftovers from chemistry classes. For peace of mind, you can get them online or at Costco or Target without having to pay premium prices. If you like to maintain control, you may obtain fizz, flavor, and function without the hidden baggage by making your own concoction of club soda, raw honey, apple cider vinegar, and a few berries. Additionally, try turning those cans over while you're shopping. The presence of potassium benzoate, phosphoric acid, or caramel color is a warning sign. Here's a small trick, too. It's not a coincidence if the same company sells a clean version in Europe but retains the dirty one for Americans. That's a tactic. Perhaps it's time for generations to start making better choices, even though Pepsi continues to claim to be the beverage of the new generation. There should never be any doubt about a drink, and especially not for those who can least afford the repercussions. 4th place. Fanta. Fanta has always decked itself up as the party animal. Vibrant hues, a lively demeanor, and a flavor that almost begs for summer. It's like a beach ball in soda form. Affordable, vibrant, and constantly present when the sun is out. Vending machines promote it like candy in a can, parents put up with it, and kids like it. The twist that will sour your sweet tooth, however, is here. This enjoyable beverage has a legal warning label in Europe. Yes, exactly. Just to make an appearance in a German grocery shop, the same happy orange beverage that costs pennies on American shelves would require a health warning. Let's dissect it, beginning with the hue. That orange shimmer of sunshine? Oranges aren't the source. It is caused by artificial dyes, particularly yellow 6 and red 40. Although these dyes are widely used in sodas in the United States, they are either prohibited or limited in a large portion of the European Union. Any product using those dyes was subject to a requirement in the UK in 2024. It must alert customers that it might negatively impact children's attention and activity levels. After finding evidence of benzidine byproducts, which are related to cancer, some German merchants even went so far as to completely ban American imports of Fanta. Then came the shock in early 2025. Following recent studies that shown long-term genetic damage in animal tests, the European Food Safety Authority encouraged businesses to stop using petroleum-based pigments. Why are we still drinking it here then? It's just the beginning of the sugar-coated iceberg. The World Health Organization recommends consuming no more than 30 grams of added sugar per day, which is more than 1 can of American Fanta oranges contains. This beach party in a bottle takes on the appearance of a scientific fair when you add a dab of sodium benzoate, a preservative that, when combined with vitamin C, can produce benzene. A botched experiment. In March 2025, benzene levels in U.S.-style Fanta samples were up to 4 times higher than the safe limit, according to French lab tests. Unsurprisingly, proposals to stop cross-border resales to nearby nations were made right away. Therefore, why hasn't the corporation that makes Fanta, Coca-Cola, cleaned up its American recipe? According to a leaked letter that Reuters released, executives talked about preserving market expectations in North America and reducing costs for low-income areas. Budget-conscious people, they reasoned, won't read the label, won't object, and won't know they're sipping a version that no European child is permitted to consume at a birthday celebration. Not only is it offensive, but it's exploitation in a bottle for older Americans who are attempting to stretch a tight check. You're told it's a treat, but what you receive is a cheap batch that contains ingredients that are prohibited in other countries. It's hardly a regional preference when a beverage requires a warning notice in Belgium, but not in Buffalo. There is a double standard in regulations. Here's the bright side, though. You can have a zesty fizz without using an artificial orange. Sparkling waters with genuine fruit essence are available from brands including La Croix, Booble, and Spindrift. No preservatives, no dyes, and no snubs from European authorities. Want something more akin to Fanta? Make your own. A few drops of vanilla essence, club soda, and fresh orange juice. It won't make your liver unhappy and taste just like the real thing. Keep an eye out when you're shopping. Steer clear of anything that contains sodium benzoate, red 40, yellow 6, or ambiguous natural flavors that don't truly describe the contents of the bottle. It wouldn't pass the European sniff test if the label states "made for export only" or doesn't include the EU's food safety regulations. Additionally, you might not want to pass your lips, because a drink is probably too filthy for your refrigerator if it's too filthy for a Belgian cafe. It is no longer frequently featured in advertisements. However, Mellow Yellow continues to linger like that dusty rural diner jukebox, unapologetically neon, obstinately traditional, and quietly devoted. People are reminded of fishing excursions, pickup vehicle cup holders, and the hum of vending machines next to dilapidated petrol stations by the drink. It's a nostalgic mainstay for certain people, particularly in the South. Citrus caffeine, buzzing, familiar, and inexpensive. However, you would require a legal team, a lab coat, and most likely a hazmat permit if you attempted to sell that identical bottle in Europe today. Mellow Yellow isn't simply out of style there, it's completely inappropriate. Let's discuss that yellow glow from the nuclear power plant. The offender? Another name for yellow 5 is tartrazine. Sunshine and lemons don't bring it. Europe handles this petroleum-based dye similarly to how we handle asbestos. It is already restricted by warning labels or outright bans in nations like Sweden and Belgium. Additionally, fresh animal studies that connected yellow 5 to possible DNA damage over time were made public by the European Food Safety Authority in early 2025. Not a scare technique it is scientific. That's the kind of science that led Coca-Cola to quietly remove Mellow Yellow from the European map instead of attempting to make it better. However, we have only just begun. Brominated vegetable oil, or BVO, the notorious flame retardant substance used to stabilize citrus taste, was also present in mellow yellow. For decades, the same substance that was sprayed on couches to prevent fires somehow found its way into Pepsi cans. BVO was outlawed in Europe years ago. After years of procrastination, the American FDA finally finalized the prohibition in April 2025. Additionally, tests conducted in Texas as recently as 2024 revealed that remnants of mellow yellow were still present in cans, indicating that slower reformulations or older stock are still eluding detection. The caffeine comes next. Over 50 milligrams are contained in a single can, which is sufficient to startle your brain, but not enough to alert you to its impending arrival. Caffeinated sodas are strictly regulated in Europe, particularly when children are present. Mellow yellow was identified in a 2024 European Commission report as having more sugar and caffeine than is acceptable to consume each day, and it is particularly harmful when combined with coffee or energy beverages. Denmark went so far as to categorize it as a restricted sale item, completely prohibiting its use in juvenile areas and schools. What do you get when you combine everything? A beverage banned from Europe for failing all significant health tests, not because it tastes good. In the United States, however, it continues to thrive in neglected gas station coolers, fast food fountains, and dollar stores, particularly in areas where residents are too exhausted, overburdened, or underprivileged to inquire about their cup's contents. You're not forced to live with it, though. There are easier ways to get that citrus sparkle without the chemical aftershock. Citrus AHA and lemon spindrift use genuine fruit and basic ingredients instead of dyes and strange oils. They are evidence that taste and health don't have to be mutually exclusive and can be found at Publix, Kroger, and even online with discounts. If you prefer to make it at home, simply combine sparkling water, a teaspoon of honey, a few mint leaves, and a splash of fresh grapefruit juice. Without the flame retardant, the kick is the same. Avoid drinks when you're buying. They're listed as Yellow 5. Amounts of caffeine exceeding 45 milligrams or any type of vegetable oil that isn't appropriate for a salad. The basic rule of thumb is to replace an ingredient label if it is longer than a church bulletin. Select beverages with no color codes, fewer than 5 ingredients, and no words you can't pronounce. Perhaps we should catch up if soda was outlawed in Europe 10 years ago and we only learned about it last spring. Not only legally, but rationally as well. Sixth, Barq's Root Beer. There's something a little obstinate about Barq's. It's the beverage that has outlasted the neon signs above it in American mom-and-pop shops and cafes. It's no longer upscale, fashionable, or even widely promoted. However, Barq's still have weight for people who grew up pouring a scoop of vanilla ice cream into a large glass to make a float, or popping open a chilled bottle next to a burger and fries. It's a bit of America, not just root beer. This, however, is the part that most people never anticipate. That kind of effervescent nostalgia. In most of Europe, it wouldn't even pass customs. The first warning sign? Sodium benzoate. It seems innocuous enough until you hear what happens when it runs into its old pals. Both ascorbic acid and citric acid are frequently present in sodas. Benzene, a molecule with a historical invitation to the Hall of Fame for causing cancer, can be the outcome of those three coming together. A Spanish consumer watchdog examined imported sodas in January 2025 and discovered tiny amounts of benzene in a number of them, with Barq's being the most common. Although the amounts above European exposure standards, they were not high enough to justify a recall, and that was sufficient to trigger an advisory for the entire EU. Therefore, Europeans are preventing it from entering homes, businesses, and schools, while Americans consume it with a sandwich. Next, we discuss flavorings. Barq's no longer uses traditional sassafras root. Because saffrol is known to cause cancer, that was outlawed a long time ago. But what's in its place? A group of artificial substances, such as methyl salicylate, that are intended to taste like root beer. That may sound fancy, but wintergreen rubs also contain the same substance. Additionally, as of March 2025, European health officials are looking at any potential connections between it and neurological problems when ingested in beverages over time. Simply said, you probably shouldn't have anything that tingles on tired muscles in your root beer float, and the bite comes next. Barks contains roughly 23 milligallons of caffeine per can, which is more than other root beers. Although it's not much, it's sufficient to remove it from the kid-friendly category in a number of European nations. In fact, American sodas like Barks were the target of complaints from consumer groups in Germany in 2024 for concealing caffeine behind ambiguous labeling. According to European laws, caffeinated beverages must be labeled with clear warnings or categorized with energy drinks. Barks avoids both. The most peculiar aspect. This is nothing new. These regulations have been in place in Europe for many years, but in 2025, with a renewed emphasis on corporate integrity and food safety, it is more difficult to overlook the discrepancy. The existing version of Barks in the United States just does not fulfill the health requirements in other countries. But here it is, marketed by the case, particularly in low-income and rural areas, disguised as a traditional treat called torpado woyu. Don't worry though, you still have options. Boylan's Natural Root Beer and Virgil's Zero Sugar are two brands that provide the rich, earthy fizz of a good root beer without the chemical shadow. Instead of mystery goo, they are prepared with real spices, herbs, and vanilla. Yes, they are slightly more expensive, but the price is somewhat offset by Costco and internet sales. Do you want to do everything from scratch? For a traditional root beer with authentic roots, combine sarsaparilla tea, soda water, vanilla extract, and a small amount of molasses, and none of the leftovers from the lab. Keep your eyes open when you're buying. Don't buy a drink that isn't marketed as energy if the label contains caffeine, sodium benzoate, or unidentified artificial tastes. It's a warning sign in neon if the ingredient list sounds more like directions for a science kit than a beverage. Because perhaps it's time to consider why Barks is still permitted in our country if it isn't permitted in European hospitals, schools, or family kitchens. Keep your refrigerator from becoming a dangerous place. You deserve to know the truth that they don't print on labels, so subscribe now.